Sometimes you have to stop your business to save your business. Ben Hodson here from Job Nimbus with the Building Business Channel. I've got Ronnie Smith from Job Nimbus, longtime employee and huge experience in the industry. One of the things that we've seen a lot over the years is business owners saying, I know I need to get my processes set up. I know I need to get my system set up. I know I need to work more on my business, but I'm just so dang busy. I'll get to it later. Like at the end of the season, I'll be able to do it, or at the start of the season, I'll be able to do it. What do you tell them? Is that?
We do actually see that a whole lot. And one of the things that I try to work with the customers on is like, at what point do you want to start working on the business and not in the business?
Yeah.
And everybody throws that out a lot, but it's very, very true. And by procrastinating, it's like I always try to be proactive versus of having to be reactive. And a lot of the contractors that are in this industry, they're always in a reactive mode. And to break that cycle, don't wait until next week. I mean, or the 3 weeks, because they're still running in this race, and they're just chasing after problems instead of productivity, and being able to see their business really grow. So one of the things that we talk about is like, sometimes you just got to stop and take a look at where you are.
Now that sounds scary, probably. Stop. Because like, I can't stop. I got to get revenue.
Yeah.
We're behind. We got to do this. What do you mean by stop?
What I mean by stop is maybe a pause. Sometimes just being able to get together with their team. A lot of times business owners, they only know what they know, and they don't pull their teams involved. And maybe like start to redelegate things to other people, start getting some of the things that they would typically do, pass them off to somebody else. And so they can focus on some of the issues that they need to get solved. And I'll tell you, the biggest piece of this is through the experience of that, of not being ready, is the processes. And what they find out is they're duplicating their processes. And they have all of their employees that are spending all of this extra time and doing things to where they could have cut probably half of that out by just taking a little time and like dialing in their processes to make sure that you don't, because a lot of times they have multiple people doing the same thing. And just figuring that out. So people should wait. So
I'm a business owner. How much time per week should I be working on my business, not just working in it?
You know, and a lot of people say, well, I just don't have the time.
Right.
But you won't have the time, and we all have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We all have the same amount of time. It's about priority. And even if they could just take an hour, even an hour.
Carve an hour a week.
Yeah, an hour a week to start out with, and then work it to where they can at least get maybe an hour per day if they had, but at least an hour to 2 hours a week to that they can just focus on the business, focus on the problems to solve them, because if they'll pause long enough to do that, then it's going to save them a lot of headache and not have to wait till the end of the season, because they're trying to they don't make notes of this stuff. They know they had a lot of problems. They had a lot of customers that fell through the cracks, and we'll deal with it at the end of the season, but then it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Yep. To
where if they'll deal with it then and then make the correction, it makes it for a lot better for them to operate, and it really lowers all their stress levels.
Yeah.
See that a lot.
Okay, so an hour minimum.
Yeah.
How much does time management play into this? I know that's a common thing that you see. You're talking to an owner and you're going, how are you managing your calendar? I don't have a calendar, or I'm not managing my calendar. I'm on my phone 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. every day, just putting out fires. Nobody's doing what I say, right?
Right.
How do you get your time under control so you have this hour or a couple hours a week?
So I have a couple things that I would probably throw out there. Is earlier on in my life, I started using a technique called power hours. And power hours is kind of developed to where you have a specific time that you're focusing on a certain thing. And a lot of times people are doing things in their own time. In their productivity, in their productive time during the day, their most busiest time, that's when they're checking emails. Don't do that. We get up early in the morning, get the emails out of the way, and then there will be a certain time that you're doing like outbound, and then there'll be a certain time you do inbound, or there'll be a certain time you're working on the business. And it's been in my experience, like in an owner, they have an open door, so people are going in and out. Shut your door. Say, hey, if my door's shut, this is my 30 minutes for me to focus on what I need to do. So it's really structuring it, putting it on a calendar, and then letting that become almost your Bible. But setting these power hours really do work to help you power focus on things that need to get done.
does it get easier? Let's say you're really busy now. Does it get less busy as you grow? And then you'll suddenly have time to work on your business.
Well, if I understand that, yeah, it kind of, if once you get into a routine of
But let's say you're not in a
structuring it-
routine.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I'm
it's-
just
it's
too
hard.
busy to look at it right now.
Yeah.
But next year, when we're double the revenue, that's when I'll have time to work on it.
No,
Is
that
that
don't-
ever true?
No, that's never true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't find the time now, you're not going to find it next year. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like a decision. You've got to make a decision,
Yep.
And it has to be a commitment. And a lot of times they just can't commit to it because they're putting out the things that are happening now instead of focusing on what needs to happen. So I think by just having to put a stop to it, say, hey, look, I'm going to put this on my calendar, and this is my time, here it is, and stick to it. It's just like your workouts. Like when you work out, every day what day you're going to do that, right?
Yep.
Because that's your time to really focus, to...
But I'm really big.
that's
I
it.
mean,
So,
money, all that stuff. There's all kinds of factors in the life, right? But
right.
time is the most important thing, the thing I value the most. And so
Yeah.
I'm very deliberate about where I spend my time and how much.
And that's really important because you're right. I mean, that's all we really do have is time. And it goes back to that same 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And it's what you're going to do with that time. But I do think that people sometimes they work on the wrong things. We're really big about the books, the right it, working on the right things. And a lot of times it's getting uncluttered. A lot of times when you're cluttered up, you're not thinking right, but it's a process and it's not easy to get it going to where you want it to, but then once you do get it in place, then all of a sudden, then it becomes easier.
I think in America, a lot of times we see busyness equated with results.
Yeah.
And they're not. Like, it's almost the opposite. But the more busy you are, sometimes the less productive you are. So busyness and productivity don't go together for me. Mm-hmm. How can you tell if what you're working on is actually productive or if it's just a time sink right now?
I think a lot of it would be the levers. What I mean by that is, like, for an example, I've had customers to where they're micromanaging. And they're paying all these people to do a job, but yet what they're doing wasn't good enough. Well, they maybe not be hiring the right people to do it because
or they didn't train them, or they didn't set the right expectations.
Right. And so by the one way that you can tell is, like, when your time, it's almost like you're working yourself out of a job almost, because if it's running smoothly, then all of a sudden you're like, well, man, I got this extra time to do these things, right? So I think part of that result is just being able to see that I've got more time to focus in working in other things to see the results that I want.
Okay, so I love that. So it's not going to get easier if you're procrastinating working on your business now. It's not going to be sometime in the future you're going to have more time, you'll have less, it'll just get worse. And two, it's a conscious choice, and it really comes down to managing your time, owning your time, and not letting it own you.
That's a great way to put it, honestly.
One of the things that you said earlier was stop. And that almost maybe sounds a little shocking when you hear that, because like business owners can't stop. Stop is death, right? You always got to be moving forward. But what happens if you've got a problem and you just do a quick Band-Aid fix to put out the fire? Does that problem get better or worse over time, usually?
No, I think it actually gets worse. And what happens is, a lot of times it means there's something broken in the processes. And I've always said this, is that as people, if you have processes in place for a reason, but a lot of times people start skipping their own processes. And so if sales skips process.
We're so busy, we got to skip our process now.
Right. And then sales did it, production did it, billing does it, and then all of a sudden now we got this big problem, and it's just compounding over time, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to where sometimes by just pausing and like looking at it, pulling up a 5-minute like really quick meeting, hey look, this is a problem, what are we going to do? I don't want to just put a Band-Aid on it, we need to solve it and then go on. That sometimes will start moving things to where they don't have this escalated thing that's going to happen to where it could end up exploding on them.
So let's talk about that. So what does it mean to solve a problem to you? Like, you got a problem where people are not following this step and this step, and so we lost money in the end of the deal or whatever. What does it mean to solve that? Is it that you get on a whiteboard and you build out a process? Is it that you go and set up a meeting with the team members that are in charge of that and you explain to them what they're supposed to be doing and train them on it? Is it all of those things? How do you look at this?
So, well, I think it depends on the type of problem, of course, but yeah, I mean, if it is revolving to where this is like an issue that's reoccurring, like I'm seeing this every day, this is happening, I need to solve it, let me pull the people in to figure out where it's broken and what's happening. But then there are some times that from an owner standpoint, they don't make decisions. Some people have a hard time making decisions.
Yeah.
And they can't like really quick, no, let's just do this and let's go try that. But yes, I think that depending on the problem, I think that sometimes it does require that. Sorry about that.
So sometimes it requires you to build out a process on your board.
Yep.
And actually whiteboard it out, think through it.
Yep.
Then print that out, hand it to the person who's in charge of that, explain what your expectations and what they're accountable for in that process is, make sure they understand clearly what they're supposed to be doing. And then there's got to be a third thing here where you have some kind of number or
metric.
something to measure it, and this ties it all back to metrics here, I guess.
You know, and actually we're very big on that even here.
Yeah.
You know, so we talk about this a lot. So yes, and being able to see what's happening, I do think that depending on what that is, putting a metric, and then also, you know, too is a lot of these customers don't even have like weekly meetings or like one-on-ones, and spending time with that employee and developing them and
What's a
training
best
them.
practice on one-on-ones? How often should you be meeting with an employee?
I think at least once a week you should be able to get with this, even if it's just a quick 30-minute, you got it very detailed.
When you say
laid
an
out.
employee, I've got 30 employees in my company. Should I be meeting with all 30 all week? That's all my time, Ronnie, you know?
No, I think that if you have the right managers in place, and depending on how
So
you're
it's the
growing.
people reporting to you that
There
you're
you go.
talking about.
Yeah,
Yep,
absolutely.
got it.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't do it all, but if you have the managers in place, depending on your organization. Now,
Should the managers be meeting with their people weekly?
Yeah, and let's put this back into construction format. You know, as a business owner, if you have a sales manager, if you have a production manager, and an office manager, then the owner would be meeting with those managers, and they were talking more of manager issues, company type deals. But then on that level of the sales manager, he would be working with his sales team, and the production manager would be working with that team, and then the office manager would be working with the people in the office. And then as they have these problems, then those individual people would spend time with their immediate staff and talk about those issues to solve those problems, to keep it from compounding and building up over time.
Great. So meeting with your people once a week that are your direct reports, helping them make sure they know what they're accountable for, what their numbers are, you're reviewing what their numbers are and where they're at on it, and then setting expectations and reviewing whatever didn't work well and improving on that.
Yes, if that's to sum that up, and the coaching piece of that, you know, we've adopted this thing that we would rather like coach our people, and I think that's part of it to make them better, because they can't get better if they don't know what their problem is. If you're always saying, hey, you did a really, really, really good job, and maybe they are, but maybe they're not, and sometimes people don't see those things. So by opening it up and just having some honest conversations, they can help solve those problems, so it just don't keep building and building and building until it blows up.
All right, thanks, Ronnie. So we'd love to hear in the comments below problems that you are trying to solve right now, or maybe this is a good moment for you to stop right now or pause and actually ask yourself, what do I really need to do on my business? And then comment that below. We'd love to hear what everybody's ideas are.